I welcome you to the Messiah Revelation. It's an end time ministry dedicated to end time events. And today we are focusing on awakening of the Hebrews. Some of them call themselves Hebrew Israelites. And some of them want to be specific, even including those who do not recognize the Hebrews. And they say we are black Hebrew Israelites. But I believe that it is not an issue of being a black Israelite. It's an issue of being an Israelite, a Hebrew. So three things are clear in this message. The Negroes are already Hebrews. Those people who are descendants of Jacob, they are already Hebrews. And the evidence is clear. And the evidence is from the Bible to Timbuctu. I deliberately chose the theme from the Bible to Timbuctu. And I'm saying that the evidence that the Negro is a Hebrew, already a Hebrew, is from the Bible. But in case you don't believe in the Bible, or in case you are not sure, and then you also look at Timbuctu. And when I say Timbuctu, I'm talking about Africa. And the conclusion of the message is that the black people, men and women, who are scattered all over the world, particularly through the transatlantic slave trade, of course, they have a Hebrew descent. And that is the message. This is what we are going to discuss. And particularly for those who are in America, you call yourself Hebrews and you are in a battle. It's both political battle and also spiritual battle. You have to remember, and you tell your children and your friends, and you even tell those who do not believe in you that before your ancestors came to America, they were already Hebrews, descendants of Jacob. And so nobody should force them to convert to any other religion. And I'm showing you a copy of a book, The Soul of Judaism. The Soul of Judaism. The subtitle is Jews of African Descent in America. And the book is very comprehensive and discusses the idea that black people who are in America are also Jews. He's using the term Jew, even though in my messages I prefer to use the word Hebrew. And the argument is that there are Jews of African descent in America. And he goes through the tribes in Africa, many of them that are Israelites. And through the transatlantic slave trade, they were scattered to all parts of the world. And principally in America, there are black people who are Jews, but they are not recognized, they are not accepted. And the author of the book, I believe he's a Jew himself and a Jew of color. And he's bringing into focus the dilemma of the Jew. If somebody is a black person, is he a Jew? And does he have to believe in Judaism? Why all this confusion? And so today we are going over the source of the confusion, and we are going to break it down. So number one, the confusion arose over over an academic question, a biblical question, and a theological question. One, were blacks in the Bible, or are blacks in the Bible? A lot of people were devoting attention to prove that there were blacks in the Bible, Old and New Testament. Why did they have to do that? Why do people have to write volumes of book to prove that there are blacks in the Bible? It is because blacks were excluded from the Bible. And of course, we know who excluded them. Those who believe that black is not good. They excluded black people from the Bible. And so some scholars spent their whole career in proving that, of course, there are blacks in the Bible. And I'll mention three of them. Two of them are African Americans. One is called John Johnson. He wrote a book, The Black Biblical Heritage, very comprehensive. And the second one is Walter McCray. McCray is McCray. Walter Arthur McCray. Black Presence in the Bible. And that book is very interesting because he provides a list of biblical characters who are black. And the third book is titled Africa and Africans in the Old Testament. And that book was written by a Nigerian I know personally. He's a professor of Old Testament history. And when he was in college, he had a problem with his white academic advisors because they would not understand why he would write something to prove that there were black people in the Bible. It was a taboo, and he had problem with his academic advisors. Of course, you should know that a lot of people spend their time denying the existence of black people in the Bible. The second issue was also intellectual academic. And what is the issue? The issue is the ancient civilization in Egypt. Who was responsible for it? Is it white people or black people? Of course, the powers that be cannot understand why the major civilization in the world in Egypt was a black civilization. And so they try to exclude the Negro from Egypt. If you exclude the Negro from the Egypt, it means that you cannot associate civilization with the Negro. Number two, you cannot also associate Negroes with the Hebrews, the children of Jacob, who settled in Egypt. And a lot of African scholars spend time in refuting the Eurocentric interpretation of Egypt. And the Europeans and Americans, the white power structure, they call themselves Egyptologists. And they didn't call themselves Africanists, because if you are studying Africa, you are an Africanist, you are studying Africa. But they separated Egypt from Africa, so they would rather call themselves Egyptologists. And it took the work of Sheikh Anta Diop, a black Negro from Senegal, to dispute the assertion that the Egyptian civilization was created by white people. And so the evidence from the writings of Sheikh Anta Diop is that the Negro was the one who created the civilization in ancient Egypt, and it was Negro pharaohs who ruled Egypt and they built the civilization in Egypt, including the pyramids in Egypt. Okay, so let's go to the Bible, and I will refer you to Isaiah 18, verse 2. The prophet Isaiah is talking about a king who ruled Egypt, and the name of the king is Tihaka. King Tihaka. He was a Nubian pharaoh in Egypt. And the father, the prophet Isaiah, is talking about Pharaoh Tihaka. Shows you that even the prophet Isaiah, during his time, recognized that there were Nubians in Egypt, and they were kings in Egypt, and the Nubians were black people. And it confirms that the civilization that occurred in Egypt was a black civilization, a Nubian civilization, and the fact is clear that it was a Nubian king, a black king from Nubia. He was not from Egypt, he was from Nubia, another civilization that ruled ancient Egypt. So that is history for you. And we are going through the Bible, and now we are looking at theologies. And how do you prove that you are in the Bible? You're a black man. And even if you are in the Bible, of course, let's assume you are in the Bible. Let's accept that black men, black women were in the Bible. You were black, and you are cursed, and that is the white theology, the curse of Ham. You are of a Hamitic race. You are a descendant of a black person, and the black person Ham was cursed. We are not going to spend time on the curse of Ham because it is false, and it is a false Eurocentric theology used to discredit black people and also to exclude black people from salvation. There are a lot of Americans, of course, white Americans, they believe that human beings come from different Adams. And so there's a different Adam theology. The argument is that there's more than one Adam. And the white people come from the Adam that we know, and then black people come from a different Adam altogether. This is crazy. I would basically say racism in theology, and of course, you know why they are doing that. They use theology to exclude the Negro from the Bible, and they use maps to and geography to exclude the Negro from the Bible. So it's an intellectual battle, but beneath it is a spiritual warfare. The map. They changed the map of Africa. And if you go to 1747, you see the Negro map of Africa, where you see the Kingdom of Judah in West Africa, the place where many people were taken as slaves and scattered to all the four corners of the earth. They changed the map, so now you cannot see the Kingdom of Judah in West Africa. If they show you the map, then you know that, of course, West Africa, Timbuctu, the slave coast, was actually a kingdom of Judah, descendant of Jacob. And that is how they use the map. And then after 1945, after the Second World War, they changed the geography of Africa. They divided Africa, and Palestine was taken out of Africa. Egypt was taken out of Africa. Intellectually, they also separated Africa, and they call Black Africa Sub-Saharan Africa. And to create the impression in you that Black Africa is not part of the Middle East, in order to exclude the Negro from the Bible, to exclude the Negro from civilization, and also create the impression that the Messiah was not a Negro because he was not born in Africa. He was born in the Middle East. And how they use geography and maps. And when we're talking about geography, um, people can change the names of mountains, they can change the names of rivers, they can change the names of cities in order to distort historical facts. Archaeology. Archaeology betrayed them because later archaeological evidence shows so many things. The evidence is clear. One, the archaeological evidence showed the contribution of the Negro to Egyptian civilization. And of course, archaeology also came to prove that there was another civilization called Nubian civilization. And archaeology also showed that there were Negroes in Israel. And Masada discoveries showed that there was a city, the city of Masada in Judah, and one of the last strongholds when the Romans invaded Palestine, Jerusalem. And the ruins show black people with locks, hair, kinky hair, rasta hair, indicating that there were black people in Masada, a city of Judah. And it shows that, of course, the Judans and the people of Judah were Negroes, black people, and it proves that there were blacks in the Bible. So archaeology worked against them. And there was a Harvard archaeologist, when he went to Africa, he saw the black contribution to the Asian civilization. It was his own work. He saw it, but he was not happy about it. And so he changed his story. He changed his story to show that the, the kings in Egypt were not black at all. So here is an archaeologist from Harvard University who is not happy because his work has actually changed his racist mentality. He had a racist mentality before he went to do the archaeological work. The archaeological evidence actually proved him wrong, and he was very unhappy about it. In modern times, they fall on DNA to prove that they are the Jews. And so you have to prove that you are a Jew by doing DNA. But recently, DNA exposed them because DNA exposed them as not originally from Palestine, but from other areas, the Caucasus Mountains, the region of the Ashkenazis, and so now you can't do DNA in Israel. Why? Because DNA which they use has exposed them, and of course, DNA is something that they brought it. It was not the Negro who brought DNA, it was the Euro-Americans who brought the DNA, but there are a lot of falsities with the DNA. Ronald Darton, in his book, Hebrews to Negroes, has identified the falsities in the DNAs. This book, The Soul of Judaism in America, the Jews of African descent, he talks about an idea. In America, if you have a small Indian blood in you, then you will say, I have a small Indian blood. A white man has a small Indian blood, a small Indian blood. And you are a white man with a small Indian blood. If the same white man has a small black blood, then they will say that you are a full Negro. Anybody with a small black blood is a full Negro because of the one drop rule. If you're an American, you know what the one drop rule is. And so we are in a battle to define who is a Hebrew, who is a descendant of Jacob, who is the chosen of God. And what method are being used? Force. They force you to be a Jew. You're a black man, they force you to be a Jew. And they do it by forcing you to convert to Judaism. And so the title of this book, The Soul of Judaism in America, Jews of African descent in America. They say you are a Jew and you're a black man, you're a Jew. And they are happy that you're a Jew because you have converted to Judaism, and you know that you have to be converted based upon the Talmud. The Talmud is not the Torah, it is not the Old Testament. It is a different book containing different doctrines. Some of them are even anti-Messiah. And that is the book used by the rabbis in Israel and over the world. And so you have to convert to Judaism, and your conversion should be based upon the Talmud. In other words, as a Negro, if you want to be a Jew, you have to um, um, convert to what they call rabbinic hegemony. Rabbinic hegemony. The control of Judaism by the rabbis, whether they are in New York or whether they are in Jericho, whether they are in Israel, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, rabbinic hegemony. The question is very clear. How should a Hebrew convert to Judaism when he's already a Hebrew? When he was a Hebrew in Timbuctu, before he was scattered to all the four corners of the earth. When his ancestors were Hebrew in Jerusalem, why should he convert to Judaism? Another trick they use is that you need to accept Israel of 1948. You need to accept the myth that the children of Jacob were gathered in 1948 and Israel is the chosen of God. It's something that they are forcing on your throat. And they are using all kinds of means, intimidation, bribery, money, any other things. And they are going to Africa. They are going to Africa. They are going to Hebrew communities, and they are telling them you have to convert to Judaism. And I think it is fraud. It is fraud to go to an African country when you know the person is already a Hebrew, and then you use fake ideas to force the Igbo in Nigeria to convert to Judaism. It's fraud. It's theological fraud, because you know he's already a Hebrew, but you are falsely telling the person to convert to Judaism. Revelation 2.9, Revelation 3.9. Those who say they are Jews, they are not. They are of the synagogue of Satan. And that is part of the awareness. If you are in America and you call yourself a Hebrew Israelite, particularly when you add black Hebrew Israelite, then you are a court. You are a court. You are a court because you are a Negro and you call yourself a Hebrew. Why can a Negro be Hebrew? You are on my nerves. You are making me angry. How can a Negro be a Hebrew? So if you are a Hebrew Israelite, you are a member of a court. And you are intimidated so that you never call yourself a Hebrew. And if you tweet about Hebrewness, if you send a link to publications, if you're a basketball player, they will suspend you. If you're a celebrity and you say you are a black celebrity, you say you are a Hebrew, the media wouldn't like you. The establishment wouldn't like you. And if you say anything against the Israel of 1948, and I watched a video, and an American lady, her name is Lisa Boyce, operating a channel, Watch Woman 65. She said, "You are an apostate." Who is an apostate? An apostate is somebody who is a Christian who doesn't say good things about Israel of 1948. You are an apostate. So these are all games that they play. And so the message is simple. The Negro or the black person is already a Hebrew. I wouldn't use the word Jew. The evidence is clear, and the evidence is from the Bible to Timbuctu. And so our last analysis is focused on the Bible, but we are using a small portion of the Bible, Deuteronomy chapter 28. It contains the curses and the blessings. If you are a Hebrew, then you have to fit Deuteronomy 28. And so I'll focus on three verses of Deuteronomy 28, verse 64, verse 48, and verse 68. Verse 64 is about dispersion. The true children of Jacob will be dispersed. Dispersed means scattering. Of course, Jews claim they were scattered. That is fine. Of course, the Negroes were scattered. So many scatterings. The scattering by the Arabs, the scattering by the Europeans, and the scattering by the Roman Catholic Church. And so the blacks were scattered if the Jews were scattered. Deuteronomy 28, verse 48. The children of Jacob will be sent to their enemies. If you are captured, the person who captures you is your enemy. Black men were castrated by the Arabs when they were captured, and the Negro was subjected to all kinds of maltreatment. When you talk about Jim Crow, talking about lynching, talking about profiling, your captor is your enemy based upon Deuteronomy 28, 48. The Jews were subjected to so many persecution. Of course, those who persecuted the Jews are the enemies of the Jews. And the Negroes were also persecuted 400 years and counting. And so those who persecuted the Jews are enemies of the Jews. Those who persecuted the Negroes are enemies of the Negroes. Okay, the last point is Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. The true children of Jacob will be sent into Egypt again in ships. And that's the last verse in Deuteronomy 28. Who qualify, who can fit that prophecy? Sent into Egypt again in ships. It's only the Negro. It's only the Negro who fits into Deuteronomy 28 in general, and specifically Deuteronomy 28 verse 68. That said, God told Moses, his people, the Hebrews, will be sent into Egypt again in ships. And so the evidence from the Bible, Deuteronomy 28 to Timbuktu, to West Africa, to Africa, to the islands of the sea, Jamaica, Barbados, Haiti, Suriname, and Brazil, is very clear that the Negro is actually a Hebrew. The evidence is clear from the Bible, and the maps and geography cannot be manipulated by those who are trying to deny the Hebrew heritage of the Negro. And so that is a special awakening, but I cannot awaken you without telling you that, number one, as a Hebrew, there are specific prophecies that focus on you. The prophecy of the gathering of the Hebrews from all the four corners of the earth. But I remind you that the Messiah is coming, and you need to repent and obey his commandments, repent, so that you will not still continue with the disobedience for which the Lord scattered your ancestors to all the four corners of the earth. Repent, repent, and be a true Hebrew, so that you will be welcome when the Messiah comes to gather the outcasts of Israel and the dispersed of Judah from all the four corners of the earth. Thank you for watching this video. My email, raptureafrica@yahoo.com. I'm leaving it in the description box, raptureafrica@yahoo.com. One word, small letters. Thank you for watching this video.